All right, good morning, everybody. Happy Monday. Welcome to another pretty intense week in space. The hits just keep coming. What's up, Elizabeth? Good morning, Seven. Come on in. Everyone, just take a deep breath. Get yourself something tasty to drink, a nice morning beverage. And let's get talking about what's going on in space. Welcome to my Airbnb. I'm glad you could join me. Yeah, there's a lot going on. The hits just keep coming. Let me just get my windows together. Whoa. Okay, so we're going to be talking about the week of January the 20th through January the 26th of 2025. Um, Starting off on good morning, Michelle. Um, oh, good morning. Whoa, what's up, Moni? Oh my God, blast from the past. Hello, my friend. Wow. Woo, that's amazing. Yo, DM me after this. Okay, starting off, let's go back a moment or two, and we're gonna do a little recap. We're just gonna do a kind of centering and entering into the week in space, sort of recapping some stuff that's been going on because there's a lot that's been happening. We had a TikTok ban that wasn't a TikTok ban. We got government propaganda. We have the inauguration today. Also, right before I started this, I saw a post that Leonard Peltier was granted clemency by Joe Biden, who's leaving office today. And that's pretty amazing. Leonard Peltier was a Native American activist, part of the AIM movement in the 70s, and was arrested in 1977 or convicted in 1977 for allegedly killing an FBI agent. There was a lot of irregularities in that case, and people said that he was railroaded, and Peltier has been in jail since 77 and is probably the longest held political prisoner in the US, and it's pretty amazing that he got released or is getting released. So that's rad. Little good news to start us off, but man, it's been a whirlwind. We're going to go back to Sunday, January the 19th, which was yesterday, and that was Dolly Parton's birthday. So happy birthday, Dolly. I love you. And yeah, Elizabeth saying about damn time, and that's the triple truth, Ruth. And yeah, big shout out to one, the sun entering Aquarius, and two, my personal hero, Dolly Parton. So happy birthday, Dolly. Love you. Oh, I love you. Okay, so let's just talk about Aquarius for a minute. Aquarius is a Saturn ruled air sign that deals with what's within the walls and then what's outside of the walls, right? What's outside of the structure, the Capricornian structure, right, that Saturn has built. And so when we step outside of the known and the normal, we gain a very different perspective, right? Aquarius is associated with the collective, and also deals with people who are outsiders or who don't fit, right? It deals with the ideal versus the reality of the realm of ideas, right? Where Saturn seeks to make things real and right bring them down into reality from the kind of air sign idealized vision, right? And then, excuse me, Saturn also seeks to maintain order, right? So we have the mental vision that leads us out from the known, that leads us out from the structure, right? And so when we come outside of the known, right, and the normal and the ordinary, we may observe the existing structures from a very different perspective. And I think one of the things that I've been noticing this week, and we're going to talk about this, is people who are afraid that TikTok was being banned, which it was for like 18 hours. And, you know, who knows what's going to happen with this. But people going to Rednote and other sort of apps, right, that provided maybe a different perspective on what's happening in America and what American life is like, right? And by having a outside perspective, getting outside of the known, outside of the norm, outside of the structure, it may cause us to strive for something different or better, right? Aquarius is also associated with humanitarian ideas. And the question of what is the best idea to organize the group around. However, this can make other ideas threatening once people arrive on, oh, this is the idea. This is what we're doing, right? Capitalism, right? So any idea outside of that order becomes really threatening. And this is where we get into the idea of the rebel, the agitator, or the revolutionary. And the next day, today, right, is Martin Luther King Jr. Day. He was a revolutionary thinker who challenged the existing idea and caused shifts in what we consider normal or acceptable. He and other brave activists forced people to widen the circle of what was included. However, just because there is a positive shift doesn't mean it stays that way. And I think that we're witnessing the kind of tide shifting in society, right? History is the sort of story of the Jupiterian expansion and the Saturnian constriction, right? The Saturnian control and the Uranian revolution. And I spent part of last night reading Martin Luther King Jr.'s letter from the Birmingham jail. And I found a lot of things that were relevant to the sort of astrology of the moment. And I'm going to be sharing sections of the letter during this report. I urge you to read it on your own. You can find a free PDF online. Just look up letter from Birmingham jail. It's short, right? And I want to include sections of it because I think it's great writing. I think he has a lot of really brilliant things to say. And I'm doing this not to kind of minimize what Dr. King was fighting for human rights, for the end of segregation, right? Fighting against white supremacy and racism. Nor am I doing it to co-opt what Dr. King was saying and trying to force it into an astrological framework, right? I don't want to take it out of content, but I do want to weave in some of his wisdom because I think what he was writing about is just as relevant today as it was in 1963 when he was sitting in prison, handwriting this letter to white religious leaders in the South to explain the necessity for direct action to initiate change. Um, sorry, I'm just reading the comments. Um, yeah, and I've got Jim Jams is saying that they don't use TikTok, but they're checking on the Google Store to see if it's available for download. This sort of interesting thing on I use an iPhone, and this interesting thing happened where they were like, "Hey, we're banning this, right? But we're working with Donald Trump." And then the next day it came back online and was like, yeah, we're back. Like, thank you, Donald Trump. And I think that there's a lot of government propaganda, and I think that there's a lot of wheeling and dealing, and I think there's also a lot of obfuscation going on because I think, there is like this smokescreen that is very emotionally activating for a lot of people who, as TikTok was being banned, were felt their ability to make money was threatened, right? Their ability to connect with people was threatened. And also at the same time, Donald Trump is being inaugurated today and has promised that he's going to initiate ICE raids, right? Raids to deport immigrants starting today or tomorrow, right? And so I think there's all this like emotional activation happening to sort of as a smokescreen of what's happening, in terms of people's rights being violated, people being deported, people being rounded up by government agencies, which is kind of horrific. And also I think Trump has sort of positioned himself as the savior. And I think the savior idea is pretty interesting and important, especially as Neptune is preparing to enter into Aries, which is going to be occurring in March, right? And, I think that's one of the big themes. And so, I want to talk for a minute about some of the astrological themes that have been unfolding that I haven't gotten a chance to mention. Good morning, Jeff. Nice to see you, my friend. Also, big shout out to Club Mate, which is maybe my favorite beverage in the world. And I like it's really hard to find in America. It's easy to find in German clubs, but very hard to find in America. And I got a bottle and I'm so happy. And I hope that somebody from Club Mate sees this and offers me sponsorship. Okay, okay. So let's go back and just like look at some things that have been happening. On January 7th, the day after Mars retrograded back into Cancer, which is the sign of their fall, Meta announced that it will stop third-party fact checking. Right. This is also the same day of the that the Pacific Palisades fire started, which sort of drew my attention last week. But, I think Mars retrograding back into Cancer and this sort of moment where Meta or Facebook or Mark Zuckerberg says that they're going to stop third-party fact checking. Right. I think that this is an act of cowardice, right? Meta retreating from their position of banning Trump after he tried to stage a coup and standing up and retreating from their position of standing up for the rights of vulnerable people. And I think this is very much Mars in their fall and Mars retrograde. Mars retrograde is like action in retreat, right? Two, I think threats to vulnerable people is part of the energy of Mars retrograde in Cancer. One of the ways that Mars can show up very skillfully in Cancer is to protect the vulnerable. But with Mars retrograde here in the sign of their fall, they might be attacking those who they should be protecting, or at the very least, lacking the courage to show up and defend those who can't defend themselves. And again, this is the same day that the Pacific Palisades fire starts. And we talked about that last week. Um, There's also Israeli ceasefire deal that is reached on January the 15th, which I haven't researched too much. But this is 4 days after the North Node moves out of action-oriented Aries and into Pisces, which is much more humanitarian-minded and all-encompassing. And I kind of talked about some of those themes when the node shifted. That was on Saturday the 11th. Okay, Saturday, January the 18th, TikTok is banned in the US, and then Sunday it is reinstated. This is already bringing up themes of Neptune and Aries, right? Trump positions himself as the savior, right, of the app, and it says that uh, it says that Trump kind of saved it in the reinstatement message, which is like kind of gross and like weird political propaganda, right? But the savior redeemer is like a key theme of the archetype of Neptune, as well as the victim martyr. And as Neptune moves into Aries, there's going to be this energy of like the individual savior or the rugged individualist, or like this person is the savior, right? And I caution everybody to be aware of that, whether it's like people that you are politically aligned with or your values are aligned with, or people that you're not aligned with. Either way, it doesn't matter because I think that we are our own saviors, right? And I don't think we need saving. I think that we need to show up with self-leadership. And I think that's going to be one of the key themes of Neptune and Aries is what is the sort of myth or the story or the vision that pulls us into our ability to step up, right? And to step up into a position of self-leadership, right? Without outsourcing that to somebody else. So there's another piece of this that I find interesting, right? And while the app was being in the process of being banned, people started looking for new apps to be on, right? Places to connect, places to generate revenue, right? And people started moving to RedNote. And so I saw a video by at Not Wilden, which I reposted in my stories. And this was reposted by Heavy Discussion, who I get a lot of news from. And so Not Wilden talked about RedNote being its own fully formed ecosystem. And the Americans who are flocking there seem to not necessarily be aware of the territory that they were entering and the impact their presence was havoc, right? And so this person notes the term TikTok refugee, and he makes a connection to the pilgrims who were refugees also. And Not Wilden implies that they are not trying to kind of replicate that pilgrim energy of entering into a closed ecosystem and trying to monetize it for their own benefit. And I'm not saying that people moving to Rednote are necessarily doing this, but I think it raises some really interesting questions right now in the digital landscape, right? And I mention this because one of the other themes of Neptune and Aries is this theme of exploration, of colonization, and the frontier mentality. The last time Neptune was in Aries was 1861 to 1874. And in 1862, the US government enacts the Homestead Act, which basically allows American citizens, which at that time was white men, to go and claim 160 acres of unsettled land, right? This basically allows people to steal land from indigenous people and claim it as their own. This kicks off westward expansion and accelerates colonization and plants the seed for manifest destiny, right? And so it's interesting to note, right, at this moment, right, this kind of in this digital landscape, the like one, the cross-cultural exchange that's happening between people, Americans and non-Chinese people who migrate to Red Note, right? This is sort of the Jupiter in Gemini and North Node in Pisces, like getting a different perspective. Also, it's very Aquarian, right? Getting a different perspective and sort of being made aware of kind of the shortcomings of America in some ways. You know, this idea of America, like one of the things that I've seen kind of coming out of this is the realization that Americans live under an oligarchy, right? That we have freedom of opinion, but not freedom of choice, right? Which I think is sort of like mind blowing for people to recognize. And, you know, people like on Red Note being like, what? You actually have to pay for an ambulance? That's crazy, right? You actually have to work two jobs and you can't afford food? Like, what? Like that can't be real. And seeing that kind of response, right, to a system that we're inside the system, right, that feels very normalized, is like very shocking and sort of mind expanding in some ways. Right. And then the flip side, right, this sort of frontier energy, this rush to find a space to keep making money and creating influence in the digital landscape. Um, Oh yeah, Cosmic Cousins is saying, been hearing the word plutocracy more and more. Yeah, and I think that this is, you know, part of Pluto moving into Aquarius, right? The sort of outside, right? This takes us outside of the known structure of Pluto in Capricorn, where it sort of became normalized, right? And we're like, oh, this is just how it is. There's nothing outside the walls of capitalism, right? And as we kind of pull back a little bit, right, and come into the kind of humanitarian connection, we sort of witness, oh, wait a second, hold on, right? Maybe this isn't how it needs to be. Right? I also just want to make one more point. This is from Astrology University, and they made a post, which I also put in my stories, that noted that the TikTok ban happened almost 8 years to the day that Vine got swallowed up by Instagram and destroyed on January 17th, 2017. And they note that this is one Venus cycle because Venus retrograde comes back to the same point in the zodiac every 8 years. And so there may be parallels with things that are happening now collectively and personally that were happening in 2017. And Oh man, hold on, there's a lot. Um, will the term socialism not ever not be a dirty word here? I think that's a really interesting question. And I think, you know, we live in a very like socialist system already, right? Like what we're witnessing with the fires in LA, for example, is it's like GoFundMe's, right? When somebody gets sick, it's not like, oh, the government, like the system supporting them. It's everybody like pitching into their GoFundMe. This is socialism, right? It's socialism to have people supporting each other. right? It's just not institutionalized. And yeah, somebody saying, I hope we reach the point where we finally put people over profit. And I think that, this is my idea also. And, I think it's a long and winding road, but, one of the things that I am going to be talking about this week is the inauguration chart. And so we'll move into that in a minute. Actually, no, we're here. Yeah, I just also want to note that today, January 20th, is Inauguration Day, and also it's Martin Luther King Day. So, yeah, I'm gonna stick with that one. It's like Inauguration Day, like Martin Luther King Day. All right. And Martin Luther King was a Capricorn, but we celebrate Martin Luther King Day during Aquarius season, which I think is like kind of interesting and pretty fitting. Okay, so Tuesday, January the 21st, the Sun conjunct Pluto in Aquarius. This is going down at 1 degree and 42 arc minutes of the fixed air sign of Aquarius. And this is also very much in effect in the inauguration chart. This is conjunct the MC in the inauguration chart, the highest point. Um, and also, if you're interested in learning more, me, Sam Reynolds, and Lindsay Turner talk about this during our year ahead forecast, our deep dive into 2025. Which, if you want to check that out, it's available for sale on Lindsay Turner's website, badpastor.me. But we sort of go into the inauguration chart a little bit more, and Sam Reynolds does a pretty amazing analysis of it. So, all right, Sun conjunct Pluto in Aquarius, right? This makes me think about the black sun, right? Which is this kind of alchemical notion, right? And in the black sun, we see very differently, right? We see differently in the dark. This is an underworld vision. This is a deeper awareness of the mythic qualities of life, right? What's operating under the surface. And this can provide us with an archetypal vision that allows us to see into the kind of beneath the surface of what's going on, or the unconscious realms. In alchemy, the black sun is associated with the Nigredo. This is the dark night of the soul, right? The place where things get so bad that we have to change, right? And think about this in terms of addiction, right? This is that kind of a rock bottom moment. And I think this is encoded into this presidency, right? The Trump presidency and this period of time, right? Because we have this Sun Pluto conjunction right at the midheaven. Right. And so, there can be this like nostalgic drive to go back or to maintain a sense of normalcy. However, I think we are through the looking glass at this point. And I think the LA fires have really shown us that life is changing and changing rapidly, right? And that the old systems are not capable of maintaining what's actually happening, right? Um, and somebody saying that there's new data on dark stars that just came out in the last couple of days. I haven't researched that, but I will definitely check that out because I think just hearing that like sounds like it fits sort of in with these archetypes and themes, right? I also think that Luigi Mangione has kind of expressed the deep grievance and smoldering rage of people who are at the mercy of massive corporations that only seem to care about profits, right? Meanwhile, Trump is threatening mass deportations, which are going to impact the farm industry, the construction industry, which are going to raise food prices and slow housing construction, which is going to put more pressure on the housing market, maintaining unaffordable rents. And this is the Sun conjunct Pluto, right? This is the awareness of rock bottom, the end of the line, right? That necessitates ego death and change. The things that we have been doing, the systems that we have been maintaining, no longer function in the same way, right? And I think that there's this drive to like keep it all normal, right? Which is starting to like really reveal itself. And I think each week it gets like more and more intense, right? And watching the government ban a social media app, right? And also like watching the response to that, watching this sort of spiraling out and being like, wait a second, right? Like, why are you banning this app? Like, isn't Meta stealing all my data? Isn't like insurance companies like leaking all of my data, right? Like, why do you care? And maybe this is above my pay grade, but I think, it's revealing some like very underworld motivations around money and power, and these are Plutonian, right? And Jeff mentioned plutocracy, right, which is the rule by the wealthy, which is where we're at, right? And I think we have kind of a veneer of this is a democracy, but like in our hearts, I think we're all recognizing, oh, wait, it's the people with the money who are running everything. So the sun is connected with ego, with identity and ego, and our sense of self, right? Pluto is the flow of destructive and creative energy of life. It is like Shiva, the creator and the destroyer, right? The in-breath and the out-breath. It's connected with death and rebirth and transformation. And this is not an easy process, right? Transformation is not easy. There's a lot of suffering involved in that, right? And if we think about a caterpillar, right, who transforms into a butterfly, in order to get there, you have to go into a cocoon and have your body completely dissolved until there is nothing that resembles what you were before, right? You turn into bug soup, as my friend Bunny likes to say. And that period is like really difficult because we don't know what it's going to look like on the other side. And I imagine having your whole system liquefy and turn into imaginal cells is not pleasant. But what is being asked for us to let go of this old identity or ego identification, right? To be released or composted, right? So that we can transform into something new, right? The psychic energy required to maintain the old ego identity is really draining the system. There needs to be a change. Something has to die to free up the collective energy for change and growth to occur. And we were at a place where we were holding on so tightly to this old identity, right, that is going to have a massive impact as things shift. This is sort of like the tower in the tarot, right? Mulchi. Yeah, total destruction of the previous form, right? And I think, somebody was asking, like, when is it going to be okay to use the word socialism, right? And I think this is part of the change, right? But we're holding so tightly to these old ideas, right? And that idea comes out of, the 50s or the 40s or even earlier, right? The fear of the red thread. And I think that right now we are so invested in maintaining the status quo that it's going to take a massive shift to create the necessary change. So, with this aspect, Pluto conjunct the Sun occurring in the inauguration chart so close to the MC, we can consider the possibility that old structures or systems may be rotting or decaying, which may be difficult and painful to experience like any other big change. But I think that this presidency is going to like really rapidly deteriorate these old systems, which again is not going to be pleasant, right? But I think it's going to reveal the plutocracy or the oligarchy that we're living under. And I think this is already happening as, Trump is appointing billionaires to positions that they're not qualified for and trying to privatize large sections of the government, including the post office, which should not be a for-profit business, right? And I think as these things become revealed and we see the sort of rot in the system, this may make space for something new to emerge, right? And I think, like any massive change, it's important to breathe through this process and try and stay present, right? This doesn't mean being glued to the news to become dysregulated, right? That's not staying present. This means staying connected to ourselves, to our bodies, to our emotional body, and to our intuition, and to what we know to be true in our hearts, right? Pluto deals with issues of power. And Robert Hand talks about it as having to deal with people who are trying to exert unreasonable power over you, forcing you to defend your right to do things your way, right? And I think that this seems to be part of what we're going to be experiencing. We talk about power in relationship to Pluto. It is important to recognize where we find our own power, This is not power over, which is, the kind of colonizing or white supremacist or patriarchal system of power. But this is the power that exists inherently inside of us, the power to that lives in our bodies, the power that resides in our heart, the power to create change, the power to cultivate compassion in difficult times. This is real power, right? And this allows us to have an Aquarian power with instead of a Capricornian power over, right? The Sun talks about sovereignty and the ability to make self-directed choices. How can we become aware of the unconscious forces that are motivating us so that we can have a little bit more agency? How can we cultivate awareness in order to use our power wisely? The Sun-Pluto relationship offers the opportunity to step into our power as individuals and to use that power to shine our light into the world, to be uh, aware of those who seek to have power over us, right? And how that might be stealing our power by emotionally dysregulating us or activating us. It is important that we stay conscious and maintain our agency and our ability to choose our actions based on the inner wisdom that the sun illuminates. Right. Yeah, and keys to Rebecca saying regulating the nervous system, which I think is really important because I think a lot of what steals our power is being activated, right? And having a dysregulated nervous system, then we can't think wisely and we make decisions emotionally. Okay, so moving right along, we're only on Tuesday, January the 21st, same day. We have Mercury in Capricorn squaring Chiron in Aries at 19 degrees and 14 minutes. Right, so Chiron square Mercury can be an over intellectualization of our wounds, right? And if Chiron is the centaur and the relationship between the animal and the human body, right? Mercury in hard aspect can bring us into our head and into our thoughts. And we can replay painful experiences over and over and over again without finding ways to integrate them. And also, I just want to mention Jeff Hinshaw, Cosmic Cousins. I got a reading from them several weeks ago, which was fantastic. And Jeff was talking about Chiron as like being in our head, right? It is the inability to integrate the animal and the human part, right? Because we're just in our head and we're over intellectualizing our wounded places and the places that activate us, right? Which gets us stuck in that kind of mind loop. And so I just wanted to mention that because that was a really powerful kind of realization for me around Chiron. So big shout out to Cosmic Cousins, right? And so, with Mercury in this hard aspect to Chiron, we might find ourselves asking, why is this happening to me? How can this be? And, and the as we kind of like replay these things in our mind, we are just re-traumatizing ourselves. And I think about the Buddhist parable of the two arrows, right? Where we get hit with one arrow and it creates this wound, and then we replay that over and over again, and we continue to like stab ourselves with it, right? And so that is like re-traumatizing us. And so Mercury is the messenger who's able to move between the upper worlds of the superconsciousness, right, and the lower worlds of the unconscious. They are a threshold deity. They deliver messages and offer information and help with integration, um, which is the operating out of experience and assimilation. Sorry, which is separating out of experience and assimilating it into the whole, right? And so, in hard aspect, this can make it challenging to understand the wound, but hard aspects create friction that create change. In Capricorn, Mercury may be trying to push down the sort of suffering, right, or push down the Chiron wound, right, to maintain the focus on the goal, right? I don't have time for this right now, is Mercury in Capricorn, right? Dealing with our pain can really slow us down from achieving external success or attaining our goal. However, when we're able to slow down and bring awareness to what's happening within us, right, without being activated, Mercury can help us to tune into our inner knowing and wisdom. And we have the innate drive towards wholeness, right? And this ability to heal, right? So if we if this sounds counterintuitive, right? If we open a little space to be with, okay, this thing is activating, this is painful, this is dysregulating. And again, this comes back to that sun Pluto, right? The ability to have the agency to tune into the unconscious, what is sort of arising from the underworld, arising from the depths. And Mercury and Capricorn, right? If we can just open to that a little bit instead of being like, no, I've got to like, maintain my trajectory, I've got to achieve this goal. If we can just open to that a little bit and allow these feelings to be present, right? We might have we our kind of innate wisdom around healing might come online, right? And I know that this is a really scary time for a lot of people, myself included, and how do we kind of open to that and open to that fear instead of like shutting it down because it needs to be dealt with, right? Yeah. And Keys to Rebecca is saying recognizing when you're triggered. Exactly. Right. And we may try and block off the animal, intuitive, instinctual part of ourselves that's feeling activated, right? And our fear of the underworld may prevent the deeper knowing, which is what actually helps us to heal and transcend our suffering, right? And so being able to just like leave a little bit of space, if you can, to lean into what's arising, right? And trusting that mercurial process, that they are this sort of threshold deity that can help to integrate, that can help to separate out, right? Oh, these are what these feelings are, and so that we can reintegrate them into the system. Um, oh yeah, and Scorpio 6 saying a scar is the transformation of what was wounded. Correct, right? And also, right, I think scar tissue can really like hold down or constrict, right, our ability to heal in some ways, right? If we're not like if a wound isn't cleaned, like we can get a gnarly scar, right? And so being able to allow that process of cleaning and being with and leaving that wound open a little bit so it can breathe instead of being like, nope, got a scar over it, right? Which I think is the Mercury and Capricorn way is like, nope, just got to like get on to the goal, right? Okay, let's move on to Thursday, January the 23rd. We have Mars retrograde in Cancer, sextile Uranus and Taurus. And ooh, I think I'm going to be going over today. So I hope you guys can stick around. If not, this will be on my YouTube eventually. And you can find it at Camp Wizard Camp on YouTube. Okay, so Mars in Cancer, sextile Uranus and Taurus at 23 degrees and 17 minutes. As if there wasn't enough upheaval in the first few weeks of 2025, we have a Mars Uranus aspect happening on Thursday. So Mars deals with action, aggression, and drive. It is the impulse and capacity to assert one's will. Uranus is the planet of revolution and breakthrough. It is unpredictable and rebellious. The sextile brings kind of ease of communication between these two archetypes, right? This relationship can lead to feelings of restlessness, a desire for change. There can be some pent-up psychological energy that is looking for a breakthrough or something different. Mars Uranus can be impulsive and accident prone, so just watch out, right? There can be impatience with one's normal routine and desire to make changes, right? There can also be an urge to disrupt something or a need to break away from old patterns and behaviors. Excuse me. Because the sextile is a supportive aspect, this might not create too much disruption or frustration, which is great, but it might bring the awareness that something internally or externally needs to change. Mars is severing and cutting, and Uranus wants to achieve the ideal. So anything that does not live up to the Uranus's idealized image might get cut away. Or Mars might be driven to break away from old patterns and to cut a new path or mental pathway leading towards the ideal that Uranus is striving for. This transit provides the opportunity for an energetic boost that helps us to start moving towards that ideal. And our energy might be a little unpredictable, right? We might find ourselves getting frustrated with restrictions or things that we don't see living up to our ideal. And so Mars might be like, cut that out, right? Anything that restricts or threatens our independence can feel really activating around this time. And so there's a real desire for that independence and freedom. This is a good day to do things that are different than our normal routine. Try new foods, try new activities, uh, take actions that help us to feel a little bit more independent, a little bit more free. I'll leave that up to you what that might look like. Um, Not necessarily doing things that are drastic or impulsive. Watch out for impulsivity or, accidents that might happen. But see how we can like liberate desire or take action towards liberation for the self or for others, or to take revolutionary action even, right? This is also occurring while with Mars and Cancer. Like I mentioned earlier, Mars returned to Cancer kind of connected with the LA fires, as well as the cowardice of social media companies and their refusal to stand up against misinformation and hate speech. So it's going to be interesting to see what influence Uranus brings, especially in the social media space, and what happens with like TikTok or Red Note, right? And sort of like revolutionary energy or the Uranian energy of insight, right? That might come, right? Because Instagram and X are seeming like they are becoming subservient to authoritarian leaders instead of having the courage to stand up for free speech, actual free speech, right? And also, I noticed that there's a call to boycott Instagram, which I don't know. I don't know where that's coming from. I might like log off after this because, I think it's better not to be glued to a screen. But, we all get to do what we choose to do, and we all get to take revolutionary action in our own ways. And it doesn't need to be big. It can be internally revolutionary, right? And so we're also seeing Americans being exposed to foreign viewpoints on Red Note, which may be shifting perspective and awareness, maybe offering a Uranian perspective, which might be helping people to desire change. Right. And again, one of my favorite quotes that I saw was Americans think we are free, but we have freedom of opinion, not freedom of a choice. And I think that really sums it up. Okay. Um, Okay, later that day, we have Mercury in Capricorn opposing Mars in Cancer at 23 degrees and 11 minutes. This might be heated words, right? Mars in Cancer can be passive aggressive, right? It can approach things from the side like a crab, right? Mercury in Capricorn is a straight shooter, right? It says what it means and it gets right to the point. The sense of desire that moves sideways versus the part that says what they mean can create some conflict, right? With an opposition, there can be one party who occupies the Mercury and one in Capricorn, right? And one part who takes on the role of Mars in Cancer. And what we are needing and how, so, this is a question of what we are needing and how can we express our needs, right? The unaddressed needs may cause frustration. Frustration may boil over. That is a very Mars and Cancer image. And find ways of, can we find ways of expressing ourselves and asking for what we need without getting frustrated or angry? On the flip side, Mars opposing Mercury may not have a filter and may want to tell people off, may just say what's on its mind, right? And cut, right? That's the direct speech of Mercury in Capricorn, but it might be motivated by the anger or frustration of that Mars in Cancer, who doesn't feel like they can express their needs, right? Um, Also, Mars in Cancer has a way of like holding on to things, right? Like the crab claw that just like grips them. So it might cling on to things or be working things over and over and over in their mind, right? So there's been a lot of stress and uncertainty over the past few weeks, and people are feeling very on edge and maybe feeling pretty activated. And so something might set somebody off. The thing that the the thing that they've been holding on to, right? And just like kind of gripping onto with that crab claw might erupt, right? Mars inflames things, and this can create some conflict. There might be a desire to fight or to tell people off or to release some of that martial frustration. And an opposition is a tense aspect. And I just want to read a little bit of this section from Martin Luther King Jr.'s letter from the Birmingham jail. And this was written in 1963. And again, this is directed towards, yeah, don't be a boiled crab. This is Martin Luther King Jr.'s letter from the Birmingham jail is directed at white religious leaders in the South who have criticized his tactics with direct action, right, to create change. And they're like, well, why? You like it'll happen eventually. Like, why do you have to be so disruptive, right? And so this is a section from Martin Luther King's letter. You may well ask, why direct action? Why sit-ins, marches, and so forth? Isn't negotiation a better path? You are exactly right in your call for negotiation. Indeed, this is the purpose of direct action. Nonviolent action seeks to create such a crisis and establish such creative tension that a community that has consistently refused to negotiate is forced to confront the issue. It seeks to dramatize the issue that it can no longer be ignored. I just referred to the creation of tension as part of the work of nonviolent resistance. This may sound rather shocking, but I must confess that I am not afraid of the word tension. I have earnestly worked with I have earnestly worked and preached against violent tension, but there is a type of constructive nonviolent tension that is necessary for growth. Just as Socrates felt that it was necessary to create a tension in the mind so that individuals could rise from the bondage of myth and half truths to the unfettered realm of creative analysis and objective appraisal. We must see the need of having nonviolent gadflies to create that kind of tension in society that will help men to rise from the dark depths of prejudice and racism to the majestic heights of understanding and brotherhood. So, the purpose of direct action is to create a situation so crisis packed that it will inevitably open the door to negotiation. We therefore concur with you in your call for negotiation. Too long has our beloved Southland been bogged down in the tragic attempt to live in monologue rather than dialogue. And again, I don't want to take this out of context, right? I think that the context in which Dr. King was writing this is important, right? The fight against racism and segregation, which still continues to this day and has not been like won, right? That is not over. And I think that that is very apparent as Donald Trump is being sworn in as the 47th president today, right? And I think this idea of tension, right? And again, an opposition as a tension, right? That brings things to a crisis, right? So that there can be negotiation, that and the direct action, right? That brings things to so much tension that there's a crisis and things need to be negotiated and worked out. I think is a really important thing to remember, right? As we move forward externally, right? And also what's happening internally is we have an aspect like Mercury, right? Mental processes and Mars direct action, right? And to be able to negotiate with ourselves, right? And sometimes the only way that we can do this is when things stop working, when we come to a point where there is so much tension that things need to shift, right? And being able to take action to put us into those positions internally and also collectively so that we can come to a place of negotiation and so that we can have a dialogue and not just a monologue, right? Not just power telling us what it is. And then, and also I bring this in because there's a lot of like Mercury, Mars, Uranus, Venus energy this week. So, our actions, our values, revolution, and our thoughts. Right? So then Mercury, same day, Mercury moves into trine Uranus in Taurus. Okay? And this is occurring at 23 degrees and 16 minutes. And this can make us want to blow things up, right? Or to create freedom. The frustration that we felt with the opposition to Mars, right? All of that tension may cause us to want to create changes that help us to feel a little bit more free. That is the sort of place of where that tension shifts, right? And there's a desire to kind of honor our individuality and the individuality of others. So we also may have to do some out of the box or even revolutionary thinking, right? And Uranus may inspire insights, right? New ideas, new ways of thinking, new ways of communicating. We also might find new things of interest that excite us, right? This might spark new ideas that inspire us, or may even lead to revolutionary thoughts, dare I say it, right? Or questions about what is just and unjust. Yeah, and Vera Long saying, hopefully we blow up ideas rather than people. I love that, right? Um, okay, Saturday, January the 25th. Hopefully, I'll wrap this up soon. I don't have too much more to talk about, but this has been a busy week and there's been a lot to talk about. So thanks for riding with me, my friends. Okay, so Saturday, January the 25th, we have Venus in Pisces trine Mars retrograde in Cancer. This is happening at 22 degrees and 55 arc minutes um, between these two water signs. So this is a relationship between our will, Mars, and our ability to relate to others, Venus, right? This is also about what we desire and our ability to take action to move towards it. Venus is what we like and what we don't like. Mars is our ability to take action that moves us towards what we like or cuts away what we dislike. This helps us to assert ourselves, to ask for what we want. Venus is exalted in Pisces, so themes of creativity and romantic longing are raised up, as well as the intuition and potentially nostalgia are also appreciated. Right, the trine to Mars, who is in a much harder place, being retrograde and in fall, helps to provide some support for inspired action to help us to go after what we like and cut away the things that we don't like. And again, I just want to read another section from Martin Luther King's letter from the Birmingham jail. Moreover, I am cognizant of the interrelatedness of all communities and states. I cannot sit idly by in Atlanta and not be in connection and not be concerned about what happens in Birmingham. Injustice anywhere is a threat to justice everywhere. We are caught in an inescapable network of mutuality, tied in a single garment of destiny. Whatever affects one directly affects all indirectly. Never again can we afford to live with the narrow, provincial, outside agitator idea. Anyone who lives inside the United States can never be considered an outsider. And I think that this is incredibly Aquarian and also talks about our, the interrelated web of existence, right? And it speaks to this interconnection. I think that is Venus in Pisces, right? Venus who values relationships, right? And in Pisces, it's like, oh, snap, we're all connected, right? And then the need to take action based on these values, which is the trine from Mars, right? So recognizing that, the suffering of others, whether it's Palestinians or whether it's people who are caught up in ICE raids, right, affects all of us. Right, because we live in this interconnected web. And I think Venus and Pisces is really recognizing this. And the question is, okay, what is the action that we can take if we sort of value human life, if we value the planet, if we value, life itself, right? How do we take action? This doesn't need to be like a big drastic action, right? In fact, I think taking small actions, small community actions, can be more effective, right? And sort of building courage, right? Which is what we need to do with Mars retrograde is build courage because there can be the desire to like run sideways away, right? And I don't know the right action to take. And I think that we have to really tune into our Venusian values, right? To tune into the Uranian influence with Mercury, right? To give us that idea, that spark of insight to know what is the next right thing, right? And just one more section from that letter. There comes a time when the cup of endurance runs over, and men are no longer willing to be plunged into an abyss of injustice where they experience the bleakness of corroding despair. I hope, sirs, you can understand our legitimate and unavoidable impatience. And I think that is the sort of Mars energy being like, yo, enough is enough, right? We can't wait. Like things need to happen, things need to change, right? So coming to our last transit of the week, thank you all for being patient and sticking with me. I know that I've sort of like gone on over what I usually do, but again, I'm on vacation and there's a lot to talk about. So Sunday, January the 26th, we have Mercury in Capricorn, sextile Neptune in Pisces. Okay. And so this is going down at 27 degrees and 49 arc minutes, right? So this transit can help to stimulate the imagination, daydreaming, revelry. It can open us up to creative visions. This is a good transit for intuition and may help us to feel more connected to the transpersonal interconnection of everything, or the psychic awareness. May help us to come into awareness of the unconscious. Mercury, again, is this mediator between the conscious and the unconscious, the superconsciousness, the everyday consciousness, and the unconscious, right? Neptune connects us to the sea of the collective unconscious, and this can help us to receive information from that sea, right? The sea of consciousness. This is a good time to practice meditation, to pay attention to our dreams. The unseen world may be just as important as physical reality today, and that's on Sunday. We may feel tuned into others' thoughts or the vibe of the collective. And this can be difficult because there's a lot of suffering in the world, right? Mercury and Capricorn can help us to stay connected to what is practical and immediately useful and help us to maintain good mental boundaries. However, Neptune in Pisces is pretty dang porous. And so this might be a good time, right, if we're feeling overwhelmed, to ask ourselves, is this mine? Is this my feeling? Right? If this is not my feeling, do I need to hold on to it? For feeling, right? Sometimes it can be helpful to be open to the unseen world, and other times it can be a little overwhelming. And this might make our thinking foggy. So, not a great time to do work that requires a lot of mental focus. Much better time for creative thinking and daydreaming. However, the flip side, this transit can cause us to check out, can have our minds bend to maybe like spiritual bypassing or spiritual thinking that separate us from reality of what is happening in the present. Right? Neptune has an intoxicating quality, and we may find ourselves scrolling or using information to check out or disassociate. People might be like, "Oh, TikTok's back," like, and just binge it. I don't know. Or you might have to think about, Neptune has kind of a siren quality that can lure our thinking into dangerous coves where we might find ourselves stranded on sharp rocks, right? So it might be better to stop up our ears so we are not lured astray by the external influence when we are in this susceptible state. We might want to just stay connected to our inner voice and maintain our course for the time being, however you do that. So, last transit that we're going to talk about this week. Venus in Pisces sextiles Uranus in Taurus. This is going down at 23 degrees and 16 arc minutes. And again, this is happening Sunday, January the 26th. So, Venus sextiles Uranus just a few days after the sextile to Mars perfects, and the same day as Mercury sextile to Neptune, right? This can help to inspire us to creative action and to create changes based on the imagined forms in our mind, right? The images that come up in the imagination can inspire us to take this creative action or to make changes that help us to feel more free or to follow what feels good, right? Or to what feels aligned with our values. With this transit, as with the Mars sextile, there is an urge to break out of our normal routines, right? And a desire for something different as we look to Uranus as the planet of revolution. It's going to be a revolution of our values, or what we like and don't like, or what we are drawn to and what we're repulsed by. Oh yeah, Scorpio 6 astrology is saying this week makes me think of how Edison tried so many things to make the light bulb work, but we're doing but we're doing it to express our will. Yeah, and what Nicolas Cage says in National Treasure is that Edison didn't fail like 500 times to make the light bulb. He only needed to succeed once. Um, a bunch of these transits are happening at 23 degrees, uh, Anthony, um, because we're getting all of these sort of like sextiles in relation to sextiles and trines, which are all harmonious aspects that we're getting at that 23-degree point of Capricorn, Taurus, Pisces, right? Um, Sorry, I lost my place in my notes. Blah, blah, blah. Okay. So Venus is social, right? And this may draw us into social situations in the company of others that helps to bring excitement. This might be stimulating conversation, social interactions may help with creativity or inspire us. This is also a supportive aspect, right? So it might provide us with some unexpected beauty, or it might help us to find beauty or appreciation in new things, right? A diamond in the rough, if you will, or a lotus blooming in the mud, right? This might be things that we have never noticed before that help to inspire us or to stimulate us. So we might find new perspectives that help to free up some enjoyment in life. I think access to beauty is incredibly important in challenging times, and I think it's actually a pretty revolutionary thing. And Carolyn Casey, who's one of my favorite astrologers, says that one of the things that we are dealing with, and one of the major problems of the world, is a Venus problem, right? Lack of beauty, right? And lack of tangible beauty. We live in, neighborhoods that don't have enough green space, right? We live in places that are polluted. We, get a lot of our, access to beauty through screens without like actually physically engaging in them, and so I think that, yeah, connecting with nature and connecting with people in real life and, carving out time, because sometimes we need to carve out that time to experience beauty, right, is a very revolutionary thing instead of just being like, oh, I have to go to work all the time, right? I have to work to survive, right? To take time to slow down, to experience beauty, I think is incredibly revolutionary, and even more so to share it with other people, right? I think this is a revolutionary act. And so I just want to close with one more section from Martin Luther King Jr.'s letter from Birmingham jail, which I think really speaks to this Venus relationship to Uranus, the sort of revolutionary quality, the revolutionary values that this relationship can bring or emphasizes. But as I continued to think about this matter, I gradually gained a bit of satisfaction from being considered an extremist. Was not Jesus an extremist in love? Love your enemies, bless them that curse you, pray for them that despitefully use you. Was not Amos an extremist for justice? Let justice roll down like water and righteousness like a mighty stream. Was not Paul an extremist for the gospel of Jesus Christ? I bear in mind my body the marks of I bear in my body the marks of the Lord Jesus. Was not Martin Luther an extremist? Here I stand, I can do no other, so help me God. Was not John Bunyan an extremist? I will stay in jail to the end of my days before I make a mockery of my conscience. Was not Abraham Lincoln an extremist? This nation cannot survive half slave and half free. Was not Thomas Jefferson an extremist? We hold these truths to be self-evident that all men are created equal. So the question is not whether we will be extremists, but what kind of extremist we will be. Will we be an extremist for hate, or will we be extremists for love? Will we be extremists for the preservation of injustice, or will we be extremists for the cause of justice? And I think that that question, right, really like sums up that relationship between Venus and Uranus. What are the values that we are willing to go to the extreme about, right? What is the sort of ideal that is inspired by our values? And so, just something to think about, as we move into this new phase of the American experiment, as we spend another day here on spaceship Earth. Yeah, Anthony's saying, what kind of blowing up will we do? And I think that is a really good question, right? And I urge you, to be an extremist for love, right? Whatever that looks like for you, to follow your value system and let that guide you and let Uranus inspire you, right? But I think being able to maintain that value, and I think this is really what the Sun conjunct Pluto really brings in, is a stripping away of everything that is not us, that is everything that is not in alignment with that core light, and being able to really tune into that light and to share that with the world, right? Inspired by our value system. Thank you. Scorpio 6 is saying Martin Luther King Day is always the Monday after Martin Luther King's birthday. So sometimes it falls during Capricorn and sometimes Aquarius. Um, thank you for putting that in. I have no idea how American holidays work. However, I find it interesting that it's happening during Aquarius season this year. I think that that is pretty on point for what is happening in the collective. So that brings us to the end of Epic this week in space. Thank you all so much for tuning in. I just want to let you all know that if you're interested in learning more about astrology, myth, psychology, or alchemy, me and the brilliant Marlena Seven Bremner are teaching a class on the seven traditional planets. This is an 8-week class, so we do one planet per week, and then we have an eighth class that is an integration. I just made a post about it on the Instagram, so you can check that out. There's a link in my bio, or you can go to marlena7bremner.com to sign up. And we have just expended the early bird discount to February the 1st. So if you're interested in learning more about the planets, their archetypes, how to relate to them, and how to work with them, check it out. Go to marlena7bremner.com or check out the post or link in bio. I'll put a thing in the YouTube, etc. Thank you so much for showing up today. I wish you all a great day, all things considered. And I also just want to congratulate Leonard Peltier on gaining his freedom, much long-awaited freedom today. And yeah, I don't know, weird times, but you know what? I'm here for it. My nervous system was built for this, right? And so, and I urge you all to like care for yourselves because there's going to be a lot of activation that is happening over the coming days and weeks. So just care for each other, care for yourselves, and just I don't know, create some ease, create some connection where you can. And until next time, my friends, be well out there. May the force be with you. Bye now.